Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. Today we're doing our weekly budget build on Thalia and the Gitrog monster. Notably, we have excluded the commander cost from the price of the deck because this guy is already trending at $30. So unless you guys wanted, I don't know, the Gitrog monster and Thalia with 99 lands, I had to cut that price out. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the build. We are trying to go wide and tall in this deck. We have a lot of ways to value off just massive creatures, and then we're going to overwhelm our opponents with the going wide aspect of the deck, and just win through good old-fashioned combat damage. Without further ado, let's get into our first category, going wide. Boss's Chauffeur perfectly displays what this deck is trying to do. Not only will it enter the battlefield and be massive because of our huge board state, but we can sacrifice it to the Gitrog monster and Thalia to get more value and an even bigger board state. Ghoulcaller Gisa. She's going to benefit from our next category, which goes over all the creatures that want to get big. Emeria Angel's just a solid landfall card that's still budget. Rampaging Ballast, again, a staple in landfall decks that is budget. Titania, Protector of Argoth. We do have a lot of lands that sacrifice themselves, so she's just going to be creating those 5/3 elementals in the background. Pretty useful. Felidar Retreat, also a really good card for what this deck is trying to do, because not only can it buff our board state, but it can also provide for the going wide strategy of it. Maha Bredegard Protector, another extremely budget landfall card that also buffs all of our creatures. Rhea Ivor Bane of Bladehold. Again, look at that theme. We're buffing our creatures and we're creating more creatures, and she also wants to be massive. She hits the nail on the head with everything she does. Namada Primeval Warden. This is a perfect deck to try out this card's usefulness, right? Because not only is it going to create a board state, it can get massive and it's going to draw us some of those cards. Geist Honored Monk. She's going to be massive when she enters the battlefield, and she's going to add to the going wide portion of the deck. This Queen Girl does exactly the same thing. Zerium Golden Wind. I still think people are sleeping on this card. You can literally just double the amount of Griffins you have every turn. He's perfect in the deck. Kamal's Will. This is going to catch our opponents off guard completely. Not only can we take something out with this, but we can animate all of our lands. Whether we're closing the game out or preventing our opponents from killing us with a lot of tokens, this card's gonna put in some work. Let's move on to our next category, getting big, right? Roaring Earth is gonna be an amazing card in the deck because whenever a land enters the battlefield, we can go ahead and put a 1/1 counter on one of our creatures that cares about it, get it big, and then get some value. Retreat to Kazandu does exactly the same thing. Beanstalk Giant. Not only is this guy really efficient ramp, but later in the game he's going to enter the battlefield and be massive. Kira the Boundless guy fits in this strategy pretty well as well. If we need more lands to play with our commander, we can get more lands. Or if we need to create a giant creature, we can create a giant creature. Champion of Liamholt is not only going to get massive very quickly in this deck, it's going to essentially make our little creatures unblockable. Grismold the Dreadsower. Not only can this guy give us some 1/1s, it's going to give some 1/1s to everyone, and then whenever a token dies, this guy's just going to get bigger and bigger. Next up, not only does this majestic boy have Death Touch and First Strike just like our commander, he's also going to just have double the power equal to the amount of creatures we control. Pretty fair and pretty balanced. Voice of Resurgence. This guy is going to be perfect for our commander just to sacrifice a massive elemental. Hopefully, right? You see, this deck is just trying to basically go wide and go big at the same time, and we've got cards that go big by going wide. Don't read into that sentence. I promise it makes sense. Wayfarer's Temple. Another card that, like I said, can get big by going wide. Hogak Arisen Necropolis. Not only does he synergize really well with cards like Ghoulcaller Gisa, but he's also going to synergize really well with our card draw spells that draw us cards equal to a creature's power. And after we get 8 creatures on the board, we can just keep bringing this guy back and getting the value. Druid class is also going to synergize really well with our commander because we're going to be able to play an additional land. We're gaining life when land enters the battlefield, and that last ability will let us bring a massive creature onto the battlefield. Lastly, we have Dragon Throne of Tarkir. This is going to be really good because we're just going to tack this onto our biggest, baddest thing and buff our whole board up, and notably this can take out our opponents. This is the game ender in the deck. Another super budget card that's flying under people's radars that can end the game is Baldin Sentry Herdmaster. This guy's going to go ahead and buff your whole board up and make it to where they assign their combat damage with their toughness rather than their power. He's no Pathbreaker Ibex, but on a budget he's going to do the trick. Let's go over the supporting cards in the deck. We have Perennial Behemoth and Conduit of Worlds. Not only can Conduit of Worlds let us cast some of our important pieces from the graveyard, but it's also going to make it to where if we have to sacrifice a land, it's no skin off our back. Additionally, if we have any fetch lands in our graveyard, such as Evolving Wilds or Terramorphic Expanse, we're going to be able to really abuse our commander's ability to let us play an additional land each turn, because that can net us 4 landfall triggers. Swiftfoot Boots is going to be a solid include in the deck. Remember, your commander is going to be targeted. It is a stacks piece. Corpse Connoisseur, another solid include in the deck. Notably, we're probably targeting Hogak or Gilgari Thug with this guy. Gilgari Thug is going to make it to where we have access to all of the creature cards in our graveyard. Lastly, we do include both of the Odricks. Hear me out. The first one is going to make it to where we can force our opponents to block our commander so we can take out their key pieces. He's also going to make it to where all of our other creatures are unblockable so we can just take opponents out that way. And then the next Odrick is just going to give all of our creatures First Strike and Death Touch because of our commander, making our board extremely scary and our opponent's really not going to want to block any of that. We also run Carador Ghost Chieftain because we are sacrificing a lot of our creatures, and some of those creatures even benefit from dying, so it's going to be really useful to cast those cards from the graveyard. Additionally, this guy's just going to lower the cost of himself the longer the game goes on naturally, so he's a perfect late game card to get us back into the game after our opponent has screwed over our game plan completely. Alright, let's move on to the ramp. We run all 4 of the signets just because we want to get our commander out as soon as possible to start doing stuff, right? Secure Tri-Builder is also going to be another solid include. Another card that's been really growing on me is Explorer's Scope. This keeps the top of your library free from any lands, that way you know you're going to be drawing gas for the whole game. Cursor of Crewfix is going to do exactly the same thing, because basically when you think about it, this is additional card draw because our commander is going to let us play additional lands. We're going to be playing lands from the top of our library. If you play a land from the top of your library, it's basically the same as putting the land into your hand and then throwing it onto the battlefield. Colony Heart Expedition, another solid card in the deck. After we get those 3 counters on it, we sacrifice it to search our library for 2 additional lands. Nature's Lure is just another really efficient ramp spell. We are also running Cultivate and Kodama's Reach. Again, just another really efficient ramp spell. Notably, I think Cultivate and Kodama's Reach are really good because they set up your land drop for the next turn. And with our commander, this can even let us net 2 lands a turn because he'll let us play an additional land. Lastly, we have Solemn Simulacrum. This is going to be amazing for our commander just to sacrifice, and we'll bring him back and then our commander will just sacrifice him again. The value this card's going to provide is going to be insane. Alright guys, let's get into this card advantage. We have Greater Good, a super budget card that's honestly one of the best cards in any green deck. Life's Legacy is another solid card. We're just going to sacrifice those massive creatures to draw even more cards, and that's just going to contribute to our commander playing additional lands and us creating a bigger board state. Soul's Majesty does exactly the same thing. Rishkar's Expertise is a little better than both of those because it's going to let us play a 5 CMC spell from our hand for free. Hunter's Insight, no one's going to be blocking our commander, so we can essentially just use this to draw 4 cards whenever we want. Return of the Wild Speaker not only can be a game ender, but it's also going to be another card draw option. Momentous Fall, again, we're just sacrificing those big creatures to draw a lot of cards. Guruk's Pack Leader is a little better because he sticks around and he's going to get us continuous card draw throughout the game. A little pricey, but honestly worth it. Snake Umbra, not only is this going to protect our commander, but it's also going to draw us a card. Disciple of Bolas, another solid card. It enters the battlefield, we sacrifice our biggest creature, we draw a lot of cards, and then we can even sacrifice this guy to our commander, send him to the graveyard, and draw even more cards. Lastly, we have our removal package, which is really efficient. Beast Within and Generous Gift are going to get rid of a target permanent. Then we have Maelstrom Pulse, a really flexible card that can get rid of a lot of permanents. Terra Sunder, another super flexible card that we can use to get rid of a target non-land permanent. Binding of the Old Gods, another solid card that's not only ramp, but it is removal. Additionally, whenever that 3rd saga hits, we can get all of our creatures to have Death Touch and send them at our opponents. Austere Command is a solid board wipe that can get rid of whatever we need to get rid of, and Azuri's Predation. Not only can this card help us with our go wide strategy, but it can also hose our opponent's token strategy. I've seen people know 100% that they're gonna win because they just dropped an Avenger of Zendikar and they're getting ready to play a ton of lands next turn, and then we completely take over the game with this card, getting a massive board state out of nowhere and completely hosing their strategy. I love this card. As As always, guys, don't forget to leave a comment. That really helps me out, and I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors. I'll see you in the next one.